Well, live, here we are. I would love it. Yes, if in the future, I could say, look, would you like a coffee? And you say, yeah, I want a coffee. And then somehow through this crypto metaverse chat, of course, you'll pay for the coffee with
Yeah,
crypto.
sure, with
And
cryptos.
then it will be 3D printed in your place, and you just pick it up. That's it. That would be fantastic. I don't know if it will happen.
UP Hour Speciale Crypto è organizzato da UP Gang e Marco Montemagno in collaborazione con Leontech. Con una diversificata gamma di oltre 800 certificati quotati in Italia, Leontech offre soluzioni di investimento adatte ad ogni risparmiatore. Visita il sito certificati.leontech.com, esplora un universo di prodotti e seleziona quelli più adatti alle tue esigenze. Leontech, tecnologia ed innovazione al servizio del tuo portafoglio.
The crypto payment is already happening. That's what we know. And Tino, you work in Leontech for how long?
Very long, actually. Leontech was founded in 2007, September 2007, and I'm there since June 2008. So almost 13 years.
Incredible. And what's your relationship with the crypto? When did you start to be interested in the crypto world?
Well, we actually got the first requests probably already back in 2012 and 13. And, at that time, it was a super esoteric asset class. Like, Ethereum didn't even exist, like the kind of smart contracts, DeFi, and so on. Like all these buzzwords haven't really entered mainstream yet. And unfortunately, we didn't really do anything at the time. I don't think any other structuring house really was able to do anything. And me personally, actually, I found it quite, to some extent, a bizarre request because, hey, here you have Bitcoin, the white paper published in 2008. And probably the first or the second sentence says we want to get rid of intermediaries. And then you come to me, which I'm part of the old traditional finance world, centralized, and you come to me and kind of wanting to package it. So it didn't quite click with me at the time, to be honest. It was a bit of a contradiction in a way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We really started back in 2017 to look how can we trade it, how can we document it, what is the regulatory landscape, what can we do, what can't we do, and we effectively launched products end of 2017. Which was the perfect timing because shortly afterwards we had what's called the crypto winter, the market crashed. So we still managed to get quite a bit of traction. Even then in 2017, quite a bit of traction for those products. But, in 2018, 19, the markets didn't really move. There was not a lot of interest. There was a lot of negativity also because of the ICO scams, which were flying around and so on. And then I basically left Leontech for a year. I came back in this year, April 21, to rebuild a bit the crypto offering. And this year we actually have expanded quite a bit our universe. We now have 22 crypto assets on which we make products, mainly Delta One products, but also what we call actively managed certificates. And it's also
what are Delta One products?
So Delta One products are effectively securitized products of a single crypto or basket of crypto. And the advantage why you would want to buy a Delta One is to give you access to the market while still benefiting from a financial product which you can hold in your bank, so you don't have to go to one of the crypto exchanges. You don't really have to deal with this concept of wallets and private keys and how do you secure your private keys and so on. You basically trade it like a stock or a bond, and you can do this in your whatever HSBC or wherever you bank, and you just can trade it as a normal asset.
And basically some of these products are sort of like an index fund in some case, like that you have different crypto and you can buy a product that get together, I don't know, Bitcoin, Ethereum. So you have exposure to these
And actually,
assets in a sort of index fund.
We do actually two types. You can decide a static basket, and you say I want to buy 50% Bitcoin, 50% Ether, something like this. That's one group, so it's static. We don't touch it. We don't touch the product afterwards. And then the second group is what we call actively managed certificates. There you actually can discretionarily manage a portfolio of cryptos. We securitize it, and you can then distribute it, to your clients. But the important part is that you can always amend the composition of that, and that's quite popular actually.
Interesting, because probably one problem that I see, at least, but I want your opinion, is that, of course, if you are a private investor, you can decide to buy directly Bitcoin. You open your wallet, go on exchange, then you get your hard wallet, and you secure your keys, and you put your keys around the house or the notary, 2 phrases there, 3 words there. I mean, you find your way, and that's the way you do it. But often when I speak with companies or big companies, it's impossible for them. So they need an easier way to. They would love to invest at least a percentage, maybe a little percentage of their balance sheet or whatever is their investment strategy. But often they have no idea how they can do it easily. So it takes time, and they need a very easy way to invest in crypto. So my feeling is that all of the ETFs or financial crypto products will open the doors to a huge amount of capital. That's my feeling. But you need this kind of easy of
no,
access.
I mean, look, companies really have the problem they can't easily interface crypto exchanges, which are often sitting in some obscure place, have very low regulation and so on. And of course, I'm not talking about a Coinbase or Kraken, etc. And for them, having like a instrument by a regulated entity, we have a rating, we have a big capital base, etc. That helps for sure. That helps. And to your last point, Germany just published a law maybe in August where all the alternative investment funds can now invest up to 20% in crypto-related products. And of course, that makes it a lot more interesting. So also the regulatory landscape has to follow a bit for those companies to invest. It's of course, we as a product provider have to do our part, but also the regulation must allow for those types of investments.
Definitely. If I buy, Tino, a crypto financial product certificate, for instance, like Leontech certificate, what's the premium price that I pay instead of, because I imagine that if I buy directly Bitcoin, I have, let's say, a cost associated and a risk associated, a custody cost, whatever it is, and a risk associated that I have to manage. So if I don't have that, I will have the possibility to let's say, outsource that cost to a partner, and I have to pay for that. So I wonder what's the percentage, if someone is interested in a certificate, what's the percentage, the kind of premium price that you have to pay to access to these instruments?
Yeah. So for example, in Switzerland, we typically charge a management fee or administration fee for making sure that everything is securely stored, etc. And that's round about 1.5% per annum.
Okay. All right. Got it. Another question that I got is, how does it work? When you design this kind of product, how does it work? Do you, if I want Bitcoin, exposure to Bitcoin, for instance, you go on the market, you buy Bitcoin. So it's a one-to-one relationship. Yeah. How does it work?
Yeah, so effectively, we issue a structured product or a certificate. So we have a liability vis-a-vis the investors. And to hedge ourselves, we will interface with exchanges or liquidity providers to build our corresponding hedge position. So it's typically a one-to-one relationship. And then, the fees we've just discussed before, they basically trickle out periodically. So in that sense, it's actually a quite simple setup. But again, the advantage for the investor is that, he doesn't have to get onboarded with an exchange. He doesn't have to set up a wallet.
Yeah, he doesn't. And everything related.
Yeah, he doesn't have to deal with the private keys, which, to me, it's also maybe even a bit of a generational problem. There is a bit of a barrier of entry. One is a knowledge base. How do you secure your private keys? Do you buy say a little Ledger X to secure it at home, or, things like this? There's sometimes also a bit of a language barrier, particularly also for the traditional bankers. I mean, yield farming. What does that mean? Actually, for someone who doesn't come from finance, it probably makes a bit more sense. They probably grasp it much quicker. But, for people who have been in the industry, like asset managers, and want to just get exposure to it in the most simplest way, then, investment products, securitized products are probably the easiest way.
Yeah, easiest way. And maybe this is also the reason why there was a huge interest when in US they approved the first ETF. And because they said, oh, wow, now it is ETF, but the market will jump in. But as soon as it came out, the most tech people, the crypto savviest people started to say, well, be careful, because this is a futures ETF. It's not let's say a cash ETF. Can you help us to understand the difference?
Yeah, so effectively a future can trade at a premium or a discount. And at the moment, the futures typically trade at a premium to spot. So if I would want to buy exposure through a future for the same monetary amount, I wouldn't be able to buy the same quantity, right? If I have $100, I go to the spot market, I can buy Bitcoins for $100. So say if Bitcoin would be worth $100, I buy 1 unit. But if the future trades at, say, 102, my exposure only will be, say, 0.98, yeah, because I only have $100, but this thing costs me 102. And since you have to roll the future each month, as long as it trades at a premium, you constantly deleverage a bit. And the side effects of this one are actually extremely drastic, because, if you have a high vol instrument, which can quadruple in a year, and you have deleveraged 10%, you kind of basically lose 40% performance. And we did actually in-house a test where we, plotted the futures rolling strategy versus our spot certificates. And I think over 1.5 years, it was almost a 100% performance difference. So that can be extremely severe.
Interesting. So why do you think some companies decide to go to this futures ETF? Because they don't see, or they don't have another alternative on the market? Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, some companies can only invest in specific instruments. So it happens to be there's only this instrument available to them. So there is no other choice for them. So not everyone can invest in a structured product, right? So then they only have the ETF as an alternative. And now whether there ever will be a spot ETF coming out, that's to be seen. So, the SEC is I think there are probably now, I don't know, maybe 40 applications and so
Yeah.
on. And they have been there for years, actually.
Yeah.
But they just, for the moment, don't really want to approve that. But they decided to approve the future because the future itself is regulated by yet another regulator in the US. So it was kind of a bit easier for them to
I
get
see. I see.
that through. Yeah.
Because I think many people don't understand why they approve the future ETF and not the spot ETF. I mean, once you approve an ETF, probably it makes sense that you approve them.
Yeah, it's a bit counterintuitive because most people probably would argue that the futures-based ETF is a bit more risky because of this deleveraging aspect. And but the reality is the future is already a regulated instrument, and that kind of ticked a bit the box. And
Got it.
Bitcoin spot as such, I mean, you hear all the press and discussions going on how to classify it and so on. So there is still some uncertainty with some regulators, and even regulators in the same country. If you go to the US, I mean, they even don't agree. So they have opposite, contrary opinions on that.
What's the situation in other countries? Because Leontech is in different countries, and I see that you have different products and certificates in different countries based on regulation and what is possible to offer. If you should say, what are the countries that you see more crypto friendly and aware, and you think maybe an ETF will be approved faster in that country and not in that one? What's your vision?
Well, I mean, there are already spot ETFs in Canada, I believe. I think even 4 or 5 of them. But in the European landscape, I would say Switzerland definitely a forerunner. Germany also picking up. In Asia, Singapore is trying to open up the crypto markets. So those are probably very strong countries for that, and very also offer products. One always has to differentiate then also between retail offering and offerings to professional investors that then also can sometimes differentiate within a country. But here at least Switzerland and Germany are very proactive, actually.
I've been chatting with Revolut, the bank, the fintech, modern bank, and it was interesting because in this moment, for instance, they give you the possibility to trade, to buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies if you are a personal investor, but not if you have a business account. Or also PayPal at the moment is similar. So it's interesting because if a business want to invest, a corporate want to invest, even if you want, it's not so easy. I mean, even if you say, all right, yeah, I really want to do it, and I believe that it works. Maybe you believe, I don't know, only in Bitcoin or in something else, it's still hard. So what would you recommend to companies that are listening? What are the ways that they can approach this market, the options that they have there?
I mean, of course, I have to say Leontech structured products.
Leontech, okay.
No, I mean, ETFs, ETPs are all options to them. And typically, because they are custodized in traditional banks, they should also flow very easily in all the accounting systems. The problem with going, say, to a Coinbase, Kraken, they are not yet fully integrated in like all the accounting systems, etc. Even for the fund world, like a fund has to do like a daily NAV calculation and wants to calculate the daily management and performance fee. And if you have like your assets in a wallet, it doesn't really integrate well from a system point of view. Whereas if you hold it in a traditional bank account, because it's a securitized instrument, that just will flow naturally as shares and as bonds, etc. Yeah. So for companies, probably the easiest way is to get exposure in securitized format, obviously preferably with a regulated rated entity such as Leontech. And yeah, that is one access route.
And what do you think will be the next steps if we meet again in a couple of years, which is a long time to predict in the crypto world in general? But in a couple of years, we meet again and say, Tino, so what's the situation? What's the adoption? And probably I can imagine the adoption will be largely increased. What will be the drivers that will determine a better, bigger adoption of this crypto product?
Well, I mean, yes, I do agree also that the adoption will increase. I think it depends a bit like on all the different use cases which you can design in the crypto space. DeFi is now one of the prominent use cases. And I think today, the kind of the story changed a bit. Like, say, when Bitcoin came out the first time in 2008, it probably was a bit more like the libertarian kind of approach. Then the kind of the story changed a bit. Well, can we use this technology to do something better? Why do we have all these intermediaries? Why is the cost so high? Why do we have the settlement delay? And today, I think we are a bit in this phase where, people maybe, and whether that's justified or not is, you can debate, but where there is a bit of a mistrust maybe in, some of the political institutions, politicians, like if you go on Twitter, you hear a lot about, inflation, asset bubble, printing money, and so on. And I think now people, when it comes to adoption, realize it doesn't have to be a black and white. It's not like, at least not in our group, like investors we cover. People don't go out and say Bitcoin will replace the traditional banking system. But I think we are at the point where people say, well, you know what, actually both can coexist, and they are competing. And this competition is actually quite good because, I mean, there is a bit of a threat on the crypto side for political institutions, and maybe they have to adopt a bit and find different strategies, and vice versa also for the crypto space. And some might not like to hear it, but regulation can also have some benefits, and that spills over a bit from the traditional way into the crypto world. And I think that's good from an adoption point of view. I think people today are still maybe a bit scared, particularly when it comes to DeFi. It's quite complex. It's to some extent not intuitive, but with a bit of regulation, I think it will go much, much more into mainstream. And at some point, we will arrive where we don't even think about crypto and blockchain technology behind. Who honestly today understands how money travels around the world? We just don't think about it. So, at some point, naturally, it will go into this fashion where you just accept the fact it somehow works, right?
Yeah,
and
that's a good point.
Of course, then, when you really have main adoption of cryptos or blockchain technology.
Definitely. And I say I always track the chart of adoption, and the crypto adoption is crazy fast. It's faster than the internet adoption. So if it keeps going like that, we're talking about billions of people, not small numbers.
Just to give you actually some numbers, because I had to look this up for a different talk. DeFi protocols, you had probably end of December 19, there were like maybe $600 million equivalent associated with DeFi protocols. Now, a year later, it probably was close to, I don't know, 180 billion, something like this. I mean, that's a crazy factor. And this is December 20, and now we are not even December 21, but we are probably today like at close to 250 billion. So you went from 600 million to 250 billion. That's a massive increase and a massive adoption.
Exponential at its best. You've been talking about DeFi, and this morning I was just going around and playing around with this DAO, which is called Friends with Benefit. It's a DAO project, and it's a sort of club. And to enter in this club, they say, all right, you need to buy, if you want to read this newsletter, you need one FWB token. And I say, all right, cool, let's get the token. And so they redirect me on Uniswap, and Uniswap doesn't have the token, but you can import the token, and then you can buy the token. And by the way, like it's, I don't know, $300 to read the newsletter, which is kind of unusual. Usually newsletters are free, or some Substack you pay, but you pay $9 a month, Anyway, every time that I go on some DeFi platform, I always think, how this thing works. I don't understand. I really don't get it.
And that's also what I meant actually before when I said a bit, there is a barrier of entry. This knowledge is actually a bit missing, and I don't find it intuitive either. Like the interfaces and so on are extremely complex. Maybe it's because the first people who use it are typically the nerds, so to speak. And but that's something which needs to be improved. But I guess, if you look at very early banking applications, they probably were also not easy. And now you have after 20 years, they kind of know how to optimize those applications. And the same you have with some exchanges, like if you would want to trade futures on some of the stock exchanges, it's extremely cumbersome. You have to transfer money in. You then, in order to have collateral, you transfer it into cryptos. Then you take the cryptos and you need to transfer it into different pots. And I'm wondering myself, wow, that's not very user friendly. And that's also prevents people from doing certain things. And that's also why, at some point, and we are not at the moment in, we don't participate in DeFi activity, but why it also might make sense to securitize this one. Because that's the easier access. Then again, I'm buying something which is almost like a share lookalike, and I don't really have to care about all the tech behind it.
That's a good point. And what about NFTs? Do you do anything with NFTs, securitize some NFTs, or because it's a huge market again, like DeFi, huge market growing fast?
Yeah, so not at Leontech, but I do think it has a big potential. Maybe not necessarily for pictures and so on, but I think for identity, but also for real assets like real estate and so on, that could play a major part. But realistically, for our client base, that's not yet what we see as requests. I think most of the people approaching us at this point in time, they want to get exposure to a few crypto assets. And frankly speaking, the top ones by far are Bitstamp and ETH. Also, we have many more crypto assets and also different business cases. But, this is kind of what people see in the news, what they understand a bit, what they understand a bit, and they feel most comfortable with. And then everything else, the various DeFi tokens and, the chain links or Filecoin for data and so on. That's all a kind of almost like a niche at this stage, at this point in time.
For doing your job, Tino, what kind of university or study people should do? I was curious about it.
I don't think you need a particular, degree for it. I think you just need to have the interest for it. I think the most difficult part actually is to really keep up with like all the changes, because to me, this crypto world is like on, like, when you have the videos and you can go on fast forward. This is a bit like how cryptospheres. It's like every time there is something new, and there are so many competing coins, and they are competing for specific reasons, because they want to eliminate an inefficiency. And to keep up with all this kind of things, that is very difficult. So you need to have a bit of an interest in, kind of digging a bit into it.
Interesting. Do you have any suggestions for websites or YouTube channels or newsletters that you read? Do you have a crypto media diet that you would recommend to update about it?
I think the way I would approach it is really to, instead of reading like many publications at a very light level, I think probably the best way is to really take a particular coin, like say Bitcoin or ETH, and try to understand it from A to Z. Why have certain things been implemented? Why has it been done in this way and not in this way, and so on? And that will give you a much deeper knowledge, and from that you then can kind of go into other coins, because otherwise you get a bit lost. And a lot of information you find on the web is kind of high level information that doesn't really give you the depth to understand, well, why is that better than this one? So but it's interesting to really and again, you don't have to do this for like all the 2,000 coins. To me, crypto assets are a bit like companies in a way. They have their own development team, their own use case, and so on. Do you know today like the business cases of 100 different companies? Can you tell me exactly what even Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, and so on? Yes, maybe you have some rudimentary understanding, but you won't be able to do some crazy valuation model. And the same applies to cryptos. At some point you will have to find a bit your niche, what you want to concentrate on. And as you have specialists in the equity world, people concentrating on healthcare and people concentrating, I don't know, on energy companies and so on. You also will have a bit of this one going forward. But at the moment, it's just like a big, a
tsunami of news and information. Fantastic, Tino. Well, it was a very, very interesting chat, and let's keep in touch. Good luck for everything.
Thanks for having me. Ciao.
Bye.